Continue to do a systematic search of this building. Shut down all traffic on Hope. What's this street? Brook. Shut down all traffic on Hope and Brook. In the front and the back of this building, we need to shut traffic down. Has anybody made it to an upper floor in this building yet? Has anybody made it to an upper floor?
44, room 166, multiple victims.
All right, we're sending all victims, anybody that's be able to walk, we're sending out the back towards Hope.
It was a Saturday, mid-December, and police were going room to room in a very prestigious New England university. The unthinkable had just become very real in Providence, Rhode Island. During this exam week, a man had walked into room 166 of the engineering building and had opened up. The hunt was on for this man, who was so full of hatred for perceived slights decades earlier, and he wasn't done yet. He would strike again 2 days later. Hey you, and welcome. My name is Mike, and in this old video we are going to look at the story of Claudio Valente, a bitter old sack of shit. A man who committed some horrifying actions in not just one place, but in two. And we're going to look at the story of how it was a Reddit comment, of all places if you can believe that, that led police right to him. So yeah, that's a lot to get into. I look forward to all of that. Right now, let's give it a go. So let's begin with Brown University. You know, this prestigious Ivy League school located in the College Hill neighborhood of Providence, Rhode Island. It's in this beautiful area with these red brick buildings behind these tree-lined streets. It looks like what you would imagine, you know, an old American university would look like, with all this colonial and federalist architecture. Brown University? Sure, it's only been around since the mid-1700s. Sure, lads, it's practically brand new. On the eastern side of the campus, though, lies more modern buildings, fitting as it's where the labs are. The engineering and physics departments, research centers, and one of those buildings is the Barris and Holly building, built in 1965.
Here's the ugly engineering building at Brown, Barris and Holly, and then this part here is Prince Labs. And yes, it is still snowing even though it is March.
A multi-story building full of classrooms and labs. And looking into this, the best review of the building was, cool spot, nice cafe. People are stinky though. Showers are on the first floor, FYI. The more you know. Now, interestingly, where the showers are, the first floor, that's where we are going. The date being December 13th, 2025, a Saturday afternoon. That day in the Barris and Holly building, well, it was the end of the fall semester, right before the holiday break, so exam time for the engineering students at Brown University. Now, classes for the semester had ended 2 days previous, but, you know, you're getting in your last minute cramming for the exams coming up. People were hitting the books, and while some exams were already going on in some of the classrooms, in room 166 at 4 p.m, a Principles of Economics final exam review session was just coming to an end. The room, it was large, it could fit about 180 seats, though there were 60 students in there at this time, mostly freshmen, being led by a 21-year-old senior and teaching assistant. However, things would take a very sudden turn right before 4 p.m. when that study review session, it was about to end. You know, everybody was standing up in the room, getting ready to leave, when gunshots rang out. Everybody in the room simply froze, praying that what they were hearing wasn't what they were thinking. And 3 seconds later, a man walked in to that auditorium. He was wearing a face mask, and he had 2 handguns, and he simply unloaded on every single person he could see as he walked down the steps of the classroom. Allegedly, he was shouting as he shot. Others would say they simply heard him barking. The teaching assistant, the students, they dove behind their desks for cover. Students who were on either side of the room, they tried to get out through the emergency exits, but the students who were in the center, in the middle of the room, they had nowhere to hide. The masked shooter fired 40 rounds into the students he could see, leaving an almighty trail of blood and destruction around the classroom. The entire building rang out with those gunshots. Students in every single room barricaded the doors, and 911 calls were made. Brown University Police and Providence Police were soon on the way.
9 to receiving a call from 184 Hope, east end of building. Caller heard about 5 shots and multiple individuals running. Still trying to gather information. Just want to advise those response units, we're getting multiple calls all from sort of the same area. Also understanding heard shots fired. Individuals fleeing, running different directions. No real information.
This is Brown Police. We have confirmed gunshots at 184 Hope Street.
Okay. We have multiple calls. 184 Hope Street. Okay, do you have a victim there?
No. Josh, do we have a victim? Okay, yes, we do have a victim, but we do not know where they are.
All right, we do have someone on the line right now with, I believe, the victim now.
Okay, do you know where they are?
Is there an active shooter going on?
So they don't have eyes on the shooter, but it was so far we know there was 2. The brief description of the assailant was black.
Was anybody shot?
Yes, I have.
2 victims?
Yep, I have 2. One to the shoulder, 2 males. One to the shoulder, one to the abdomen. I don't know if there's any others at the moment.
All right.
Okay.
Providence, please.
Good evening. This is Brown Police.
Hi.
We have a suspect description wearing all black in a ski mask, unknown travel direction.
All black ski mask.
Correct.
Okay.
This is an active shooter situation. Alright, dispatch, be advised. It's an active shooter situation. Hey, Bobby, please, come here.
Fire also stated that they had about 6 other victims on the Hope Street side of the Department of Physics building.
Alright, dispatch. We're gonna have to set an outside command. We should rescue the stage in a safe location so we can start executing people at the back of this building. What's that street? Hope Street.
Police were alerted at 6 minutes past 4 p.m. and Providence Police responded to the building for calls of an active shooter. By the time they arrived, he was long gone. His victims, though, were everywhere.
155 front, 155 front.
Alright, let's get those students that back door. Alright, we're sending all victims, anybody that's be able to walk, we're sending out the back towards Hope. Alright, stand by. We gotta continue to make sure the shooter is not in this building still, alright? Continue to do a systematic search of this building. Shut down all traffic on Hope. What's this street? Brook. Shut down all traffic on Hope and Brook. In the front and the back of this building, we need to shut traffic down. Has anybody made it to an upper floor in this building yet? Has anybody made it to an upper floor?
We're working our way around that back hallway. Horseshoe style building, first floor, we're behind the auditorium. Report, room 166. Multiple victims.
All right, 166. Are they gonna be able to walk out? All right, let's keep that corridor clear going into the back door on Hope. All right, make sure we keep officers in that hallway. Hold on going to the second floor until we have everybody in place, all right? Does anybody have a second floor that can go up? We've got to clear this first floor as well. Hold on the basement. Stop going to a second floor. Find a second floor. Don't be at the second floor. Hey, let's go.
Fire and rescue EMTs responded to those shot, while police went door to door throughout the entire building.
We gotta just keep searching this building.
All right, we're going bathroom 10 on the left. Second floor.
Get that car in the air.
Every rescue house, we have multiple victims. We're 92 in the basement. 4 minutes to carry you on the driver. Get multiple comments, please. Second floor. Who was with 92 in the basement?
Hold on.
Coming to the basement.
Call are you? Keep calling. Keep calling. Keep calling. Stay there. Cox, man, give it. Hold on. What do you got? What do you got? All right, I'm coming up. You got a weapon? All right. Come towards me. Come towards me, sir. Come towards me. Do you have any weapons on you? No. Turn around. Okay. All right, I'm moving forward. Watch this. Watch this. Anybody down with you? Did you hear any shots? All right. Let's get. Okay. Hold this spot. Hold this spot. Hold this spot. All right, hold on. Nothing on you, right? All right. Did you hear any shots fired? All right, wait. Hold this. Hold this. In. I got it. I got it. All right, disregard that. We got that. It's a. Well, upstairs. Go. Yeah, we have no suspect yet. All right, we're conducting a systematic here for more for the suspect and or victims. So everybody in this initial building, continue to conduct a systematic search. Right, just be careful, blue on blue.
As you can see, the police had no clue who they were looking for, how many victims there were, if the shooter was still inside.
Come on, you guys, come on. Did you hear anything or see anything?
No.
Let's go outside. Let's go. Go.
All they could do was shut the entire area down and go door by door by door, hoping the shooter might be standing in a classroom, staring off into space.
Dispatch, be advised too. You have large scale events going on in different locations in the city, especially the convention center and the just send it out. All right, do we have any officers on the second floor of this building?
What was even causing more fear was that this was in the center of the city. There were conventions and all sorts going on in Providence. This was right before Christmas. What if the killer decided, once they popped, they couldn't stop?
Hey, push across the street. You got to get off this street. Listen, I will secure, you secure Hope and Waterman. Go. Hope and Waterman secure. They can go over here, all right? We're going to carry the that way so we clear this building. It's a large building, so it's going to take a little while. Any more information on additional shooters coming in? Or additional shootings? Any information handed off to people? All right, if you're already moving to the hospital, go.
I don't know what was checked and what wasn't. I was in with them, okay?
All right, so we got to slow it down now. We don't have any stimulus, right, to drive to? Let's start you four. Start clearing this hallway.
In total, there were 11 victims that day. 9 injured, 2 killed. The 2 murdered would be identified as Mohammed Amirzakov of Virginia, 18 years of age, and Ella Cook of Alabama, 19 years of age. The 9 sent to the hospital would be in a stable condition, with 1 being discharged the day of.
All right, hey, you guys are with these guys, right? Yep, you're their security.
Correct.
Stay with them. Right there, 166. Hey, to that door is. They're going to stay with you.
Hey, we went through, cleared the machine shop, cleared the section.
Right, until we get better information, we're going to run around with our tails with our heads up here, so.
Yep. I gotta come over right now.
And so, the hunt was on. Now, all witnesses would give statements, and the police would be extremely thorough, going through every single, little iota that had been left behind.
It's hard to really put to words. It all really happened so fast. I think the number one thing for me is just making sure everybody's okay and, the community is safe and everybody feels like there's some type of peace on campus.
Yeah, understandable. Can you just describe what was happening in the classroom when the gunman came in?
Yeah, we just finished up our last review session of the year. And then we ended a little bit late. It ended around 4:03. And I was giving my closing remarks. And then as soon as everybody stood up and started exiting the room, we heard what sounded like gunshots outside the door, and we heard screaming from various students. And then about 5 seconds later, we see a gunman enter the room, and then he just screamed something and just started shooting. Pretty much directly made eye contact, and then as soon as that happened, I looked at my students and signaled them to come to the front, and then I just ducked.
And was the gunman shooting when he entered the room?
No, he came in, pointed the gun, and then he screamed something. I don't know what he said, and none of the other students know what he said, but yeah, then he just started shooting right after that. So from that moment to the first gunshot, it was probably around 5 to 7 seconds.
We will be as transparent as we can in the hours to come, and we'll provide regular updates, but we're going to share what we do know at this time. But please bear with us as we know sometimes these details shift as the investigation progresses. Sadly, today is a day that the city of Providence and the state of Rhode Island prayed would never come. We've heard about horrific acts of gun violence and active shooter situations in other places, but not here. But this afternoon at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, we received a call. 4:05 was when the initial call came in to Brown University of a report of an active shooter. I can confirm that there are 2 individuals who have died this afternoon, and there are another 8 in critical status, though stable, at Rhode Island Hospital. Those are the only injuries or casualties that we know at this time. We do not have a shooter in custody at this time. There is a shelter in place in effect for the greater Brown University area. If you live on or near Brown's campus, we are encouraging you to stay home and stay inside. If you're not home at this time, we would encourage you not to return to your homes until the shelter in place has been lifted.
Preliminarily, all we have is a suspect that was a male dressed in black. It is unknown how he entered the building, but we do know that he exited the Hope Street side of that complex.
DNA profiles would be developed from the various pieces of ballistic evidence at the crime scene. Investigators would recover 44 spent 9mm shell casings and 2 high-capacity magazines. But all that returned with no matches in the system. So whoever had done this, while they did leave behind copious amounts of DNA, none of that DNA matched in the system. It wasn't a known criminal, somebody whose profile would be already, in there for clearly no good reason. You probably don't want your profile in there. Most importantly though, it would be CCTV that would give the clearest indication of what this shitbag had been up to right before they walked into the classroom and opened up on a load of, 18-year-olds. Reviewing CCTV footage of earlier that day, it showed the likely suspect he was circling the area like a shark. He was wandering around the place, clearly up to no good, stalking the place, scoping it out. Specifically around the engineering buildings of the campus at 10:30 a.m., which was 6 hours before he walked in with 2 fully loaded Glocks with high-capacity magazines. He was then seen again around 2 p.m., once again moseying around the area, looking like a shady shite. But at least it gave the police a description of the fella. A big guy for you. Face mask covering the lower face. Dark jacket. And he walked with a distinctive gait. Hard to describe that walk other than, I don't know, sort of odd. I don't like it. A height analysis would be done, saying he was somewhere between 5'7" and 5'9". Now, he was seen on cameras at one point, shortly after about 2 p.m, encountering a student. Now, that student has only ever been named as John, and pay attention because he will come up again later. At the time, though, police were unable to identify who this John was, but they could see on security cameras around the campus that they had kind of bumped into each other a couple of times, and that at one point, this, suspect had fled. He did a legger from old John. Why? Did John know what he was up to? We'll get to that. Though that would later, in fact, be proven to be the true truth. John had seen this guy, had begun actually following him, noticing he was just acting very suspicious. He didn't seem like he belonged there. He was just clearly up to no good. Don't know what he's up to, but can't be anything good. And John had begun following him for a time, till the suspect then shat his pants and just ran away. The suspect was then next seen at 4:05 p.m, caught on a bus dash cam. He was seen leaving the Boris and Holly building, and as you can see, folks, outside, they had no idea who this random lad just crossing the street was. Now, the building, you know, where the shooting actually occurred, it only had 2 cameras outside and 0 cameras inside, so they couldn't track what he had actually done when he had waltzed in, but I think we got a pretty good idea of what he did, and it was horrifying. This was released to the public asking if anybody had seen this person, please come forward, and tips began to pour in. Everybody wanted to help, sure you know yourself, in this nightmare situation. Some bastard shooting up a university, and no one had any clue where he had gone to. They didn't even know what vehicle he had been driving, how he'd gotten to the university. And then he struck again. Just, you know, nobody knew it at the time. Nuno Loureiro, on December 15th, 2025, was 47 years of age, living in Brookline, Massachusetts, which is just west of Boston proper. And, get this, he was a professor at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, from one prestigious university to another. Now, to say Nuno was good at his job was just like teeny bit of an understatement. Nuno Loureiro was a world-renowned, worldly acknowledged scientist in fusion and plasma and all that sort of thing. He knew everything there was to know about fusion, cold fusion, maybe even warm fusion too, computational physics, mechanics, all those things. I don't really, these are just words to me because I'm dumb as shit, but Nuno Loureiro knew his shit. If you knew anything about physics and fusion, you probably knew Nuno Loureiro. I mean, he was director at MIT Plasma Science and Fusion, so he was pretty good.
I'm Nuno Loureiro. I'm a professor at MIT. My main appointment is in nuclear science and engineering. I have a joint appointment in the physics department. I'm also director of MIT's Plasma Science and Fusion Center, which is an umbrella research center at MIT for all the plasma and fusion related activities that we do on campus. Many of these plasmas that we study, they have magnetic fields. Essentially, magnetic reconnection is a nonlinear phenomenon that happens in a plasma where the magnetic field decides to rearrange into a different configuration. And in doing so, it releases a lot of energy. The best known example of magnetic reconnection are solar flares.
Nuno was born in 1977 and he grew up in Viseu, a city north of Lisbon, and he later studied physics at the Instituto Superior Técnico in Lisbon, graduating in the year 2000 with a master's. Then he moved to London, attended the Imperial College, then he moved to Princeton, worked at their lab, then back to the UK, more fusion energy work, then back to Portugal, more of the same, till in 2016 he moved to Boston, Massachusetts, and joined the Massachusetts Institute of Technology as professor and fusion scientist.
So I was asked to come here today to talk about failure. Within that topic, the speakers were given carte blanche, and I intend to fully make use of that freedom by sharing you with what are undoubtedly some random scattered thoughts. If you're not failing all the time, you're aiming too low. The most important thing is how you deal with failure. Real failure, declaring oneself a failure, is a state of mind. Critically, I think we must not simply accept failure, but embrace it. For it is only by learning the lessons it teaches us that we will eventually succeed. Or, to put it differently, failure occurs when we learn nothing from not succeeding. Note that by accepting failure, I do not mean to imply that we let ourselves be defeated. One should never surrender. What I mean to say is that acceptance of failure is the only way we will straighten our course. The struggle towards the heights is enough to fill a man's heart. one must imagine Sisyphus happy.
Long story less, so he had the accolades, he had the research papers, he had the yada yada yada. I mean, as I said, if you were in this industry, you knew who he was. He was on the boards, the societies, the initiatives, all of that sort of thing. And the thing was, he lived in Brookline with his wife, his 2 daughters, and his mother-in-law. None of his neighbors knew any of this. He was just this really nice, kind, unassuming fella. Always smiling, always happy to see you, always, waving at the neighbors. Most of his neighbors had no idea how successful he was in his career, how he was leading the charge towards fusion energy. A man who was liked because he was a genius, but was loved because he was just a really nice guy. And it was on the night of December 15th, 2 days after the shooting at Brown University, that the Loureiro house on Gibbs Street, Brookline, got a knock-knock. Earlier that evening, Nuno watched a movie with his 2 daughters while his wife was at dance class. Then she got back, and at 8:33 p.m., the Nuno house on Gibbs Street, it got a knock-knock at the door. Nuno, he was in the kitchen yapping away with his wife, so his 12-year-old daughter, she went up to go and answer it, but Nuno actually got there before her. He opened the door, his daughter started walking back into the apartment, but she would say she saw, who had rang the doorbell. He was a guy, he was carrying like a big cardboard box with a barcode on it, and he was wearing like a vest. She thought he was a delivery driver or something like that. But as she started walking back into their apartment, gunshots just rang out. She would say she turned and she saw this delivery guy just absolutely book it down the street, jump into a dark colored sedan, and tear off while her father lay just on their front door.
Brookline, where police are identifying a homicide victim. Last night, police responded to a report of a man shot at his home on Gibbs Street around 8 last night. The DA's office says the victim, 47-year-old Nuno Loureiro, was taken to the hospital where he died this morning.
Nuno had been shot in the chest, abdomen, and thigh. 6 shell casings were found just outside the front door. Police and EMTs arrived, and Nuno was rushed to hospital. However, tragically, he would not survive long. He was pronounced dead at 6 a.m. the following morning.
Nearly 36 hours later, and there's still no arrest in the shooting death of an MIT professor in Brookline.
And once again, as like in the Brown University shooting, CCTV would be critical in catching whoever done this.
This murder has people here in Brookline very concerned. This MIT professor gunned down in the foyer of his apartment building, and still no suspect. At 9 Gibbs Street in Brookline, expressions of sympathy at the very site where MIT nuclear science professor Nuno Loureiro was gunned down Monday night.
They live right here, on the first floor.
Nuno's an MIT professor?
That's what I understand, yeah.
Nuclear scientist?
Is he?
Yeah, that's what it says on the website.
Oh, man.
What do you think about this taking place, sir? Right next to you. Brookline's not known for crimes like this.
Yeah, I think that it's really a surprise. And a shooting in a state where it's so hard to even have a gun. I hope they find out what it was all about, and whoever did it is apprehended.
At the start, though, police were thinking, who could have done this? Who could have shot this world-renowned scientist at MIT and a highly beloved fella? Was it the wife? Was it an affair? Was it life insurance? Was it a colleague? Was it a disgruntled student? All of that would end in zeros being the answers. That none. No answers. They could find no good reason why somebody would want Nuno Loureiro dead. And the reason he was killed was also for no good reason.
As detectives investigate this murder, they are likely taking a hard look at the professor's professional background.
The fact that he's an MIT professor with vast experience and knowledge in nuclear fusion and how to make a better nuclear reactor, I think you also have to look at potentially outside actors, state actors who might be targeting him because of his knowledge.
The murder of Professor Loureiro, just days after the unsolved mass shooting at Brown University in Providence, Rhode Island, is sparking concern that the two shootings could be related. But in a news conference at Brown University on Tuesday, the Boston FBI's top official said after talking to Mass State Police, it does not appear that the two incidents are connected.
Colonel Noble reached out to me very early. Their lead on that particular incident, he made sure that if there's any intelligence, any information in which is connected to what we have here, that they would share that. At this time, there seems to be no connection as it relates to that particular incident.
But initially, when Nuno was murdered, the conspiracy theories started springing up. Oh, what? You have this world-renowned fusion scientist just shot dead on his doorstep? That doesn't make any sense, pal. I mean, he thinks, obviously not. It was the Illuminati. Or it was some other shit. You know, it was Iran or somebody else like that. Big oil. At it again. They shot him dead because he discovered something. In his research sciencey business, he found something the big dogs were saying, they didn't want him to find. And as interesting as all that is, the truth of the matter would be a lot more mundane, which I think is what makes it a lot more terrifying and disturbing about what happened to Nuno. Investigators would ultimately find who murdered Nuno by tracking who had shot up Brown University.
The FBI described him as a male, approximately 5'8", with a stocky build.
You want to focus on the body movement.
While tips were coming in regarding the suspicious fella spotted waltzing the streets of College Hill, one tip in particular would be crucial in finding his name. It came on December 16th, 3 days since the shooting at Brown University, 1 day after Nuno Loureiro was murdered. And it came on Reddit, if you can believe that. I mean, it's not like Reddit has a great track record of, finding the right people. On the Providence subreddit, the poster of the suspect was posted, spreading the word. And clackety clackety, not long after, a comment appeared. Now, this person's name, they're a student at Brown, only ever been named publicly as John. I'm being dead serious. The police need to look into a grey Nissan with Florida plates, possibly a rental. That was the car he was driving. It was parked in front of the little shack behind the Rhode Island Historical Society on the Cook Street side. I know, because he used his key fob to open the car, approached it, and then something prompted him to back away. When he backed away, he relocked the car. I found that so odd. When he circled the block, I approached the car, and that is when I saw the Florida plates. He was parked in the section between the gate of the RIHS and the corner of Cook and George Street. That comment would become highly commended by law enforcement as the one tip that solved this case. If you'll remember John, he was the guy earlier who had likely scared off the suspect at around 2 p.m. The police now, they were very keen to speak with John, but they didn't know who he was. They couldn't determine that from the CCTV. Now, police knew the killer had gone behind the Rhode Island Historical Society, but they never released that to the public. They never put out any footage showing the suspect going there. So John saying that in the comment, he knows what he's talking about. There must be truth to this. And now him mentioning a rented grey Nissan, police began scouring through all the footage looking for a rented grey Nissan. And they found it. They found it, and that would lead them directly to the killer's identity. John went to the police himself, and he agreed to be interviewed. He told them that he had seen this guy, and he was acting very suspicious, every time he met him. He actually bumped into him like a couple of times. The first time John met the suspect, the killer, was in the bathroom of the Boris and Holly building. John was in there doing his thing. This guy came in. John noticed him immediately because the suspect was very underdressed for a cold-ass New England winter. So John immediately kind of clocked him a little bit, and then John would say this guy was just eyeballing the shit out of him, staring at him. Maybe he thought this was a very different bathroom. John said he got the heebie-jeebies, and he watched as this guy walked out of the building. And John, just getting such a bad feeling, he actually followed him down the street. He then followed him to the grey Nissan. The suspect unlocked it before immediately about-facing and walking away. And John said he looked in the car and saw some bags inside. John then remained in the area and saw this guy repeatedly walk around the block. John actually remained in the area and he would repeatedly see this guy circling the block. But every time this guy would clock that John was watching him, he would immediately just about face and start walking in the other direction. It was very uncovert to what he was doing. And then at one point, John actually ran up to him, basically saying, "What are you doing here? Your car is back there. Why are you just, stalking out this area?" The guy then says, "Oh, stop harassing me." And then he left. John then left the area, didn't see him again. He later saw the images the police released and knew that was the guy he had had the encounter with that day. Police then tracked down that grey Nissan, and it was a rental. It had been rented at Alamo Rent-A-Car in Boston on December 1st, 2 weeks earlier. The vehicle, the Florida plates, was rented to a Claudio Manuel Neves Valente, who had given a Florida driver's license. Police even got CCTV of him renting the car. Claudio was born in Torres Nova, Portugal in 1977. He was described as a quiet but humble and hardworking fellow with a great love of science. The humble won't come up again, by the way. So he later went to, much the same as Nuno, to the Instituto Superior Técnico in Lisbon. And Claudio, he was top of the class, by the way. After he graduated, his classmate Nuno went to England. Claudio, though, instead went to the United States. Specifically, he began attending Brown University in the year 2000. Now, Claudio actually his first choice was MIT, but he didn't get the grades. So Brown was his backup, his fallback option, even though it's still an Ivy League school. He was forced to go to Brown. Claudio did not like it at all, and he really got a bad reputation right quick once he started attending there. He pissed off the teaching assistants, the lecturers, because he just simply thought he was better than everybody else and that this course was beneath him. He was a giant dick to everybody. He would complain about American food, Providence, the course itself. He was a dick to his classmates, especially it would come up his Brazilian classmates, because Brazil used to be a colony of Portugal, so he would treat them like absolute shit. And before he even finished year 1 of a 5-year program, he just dropped out. In May 2001, he stopped attending. Now, he would say he believed they had nothing to teach him, nothing. I'm just better than you guys. But he would then also just blame everybody but himself. It's literally, the case of people who say they're always surrounded by drama. Drama just follows me everywhere. You're the problem. That's Claudio. On the student forum back in May 2001, he wrote, "Happy now? Okay. I am back home and dropped Brown's physics PhD program permanently. And the moral of the story is, the best liar is the one who manages to deceive himself. These people exist everywhere, but sometimes they proliferate in the most unexpected places." And so I hear you barking, big dog. Hey, Mike, do you not have any other big pictures of El Claudio, the big C? See you next Tuesday. No. He was basically a hermit, completely. He moved back to Lisbon into an apartment mommy and daddy paid for and began working as a programmer at an IT company. And from then, he sort of went downhill. He completely shut off his friends, his parents, he avoided people totally. He eventually quit his job, sold his apartment, and disappeared entirely from everyone. In 2017, Claudio was now back in the United States. 16 years after he left, finishing his course early, he went back to the United States because he actually won the green card lottery, that diversity program, randomly got a green card and decided to move back to the old US of A, which funnily enough, the US government actually paused or cancelled that program because they let in the guy who won the lottery was would turn out to be a mass shooter. So what he did then for 8 years, from 2017 when he went back to America to 2025 when he did something horrifying, is a complete mystery. We know he lived in Nevada briefly and then he moved to Miami. No job, no friends, no relationships. He was like a ghost. He was probably just in his room staring at the computer, just going insane, like the loser he is. But for whatever reason, in late November 2025, he got on a plane from Miami, Florida to Boston, Massachusetts. Upon arriving, he checked into a hotel room. He then rented a car and drove to Providence. And for almost 2 weeks, he staked out the university, his old stomping grounds that he believed he was too good for. He had been spotted, in fact, a few times before the fateful day, December 13th, when he walked in with a gun.
Kristen, Derek Lisi says he's still in shock, dealing with the fact that he saw the shooting suspect more than a dozen times. He describes how he saw the suspect in the Barris and Holly building, looking in and out of classrooms and going into the bathroom. Something fell off, so he says he notified a third-party security company there on campus 3 times about the suspect, but nothing was done.
And I had said to him, I had caught him the last time on December 1st, and I was right behind him as he was coming in the building. I was coming back from my break, and I went right to the ESS staff. And I had said to the ESS staff member, I said, hey, this guy looks suspicious. I said, he just went in the bathroom. I said, you should go check him out. He's like, I'm not here for that.
After that, he fled back to Boston, changing the license plate on his car to a fake Maine license plate. And he would later be tracked via his digital signature. And the CCTV would track his rented vehicle, flock cameras, all the way to Nuno's house. He was seen in the area of Nuno's house the day of the shooting, scoping out the home, eating lunch on Commonwealth Avenue, planning, and eventually he was seen on Ring cameras by Nuno's neighbors. So why did Claudio do all of these horrifying things? Why did he murder 2 at a university he attended himself, that he thought was beneath him, and then go and murder a guy he went to school with 25 years earlier? Claudio and Nuno had a lot in common. Both born in the same year. Both grew up in small cities in Portugal. Both middle-class Catholic families. And both loved physics. Both star students. Both getting into the best scientific university in Portugal. Taking classes and exams together for 5 years. At the time, Claudio even getting better exam results than Nuno. Look at you. Except once, by the way, when Nuno did do better, he got a better grade than Claudio. And people would later say, you know, whenever Claudio was bitching and moaning about whatever it was, he would always bring up the fact that Nuno got a better grade once than he did. It stuck in his craw. He couldn't get over that. So I'm guessing he had a real bugaboo about Nuno. And Nuno ended up becoming a world-renowned physicist at one of the best universities in the world. Claudio went to a great school, but he didn't last a year. And then he sort of fell off the map for almost the next 25 years. For the past 10 years, not even his parents knew where he was.
We had our first, welcome party, and he was sitting by himself. And I went over and tried to talk to him. He was bitter at first, but then a little bit later, he appreciated the fact that I tried to talk to him, and we became friends. And again, as far as I know, I was his only friend. Basically, he thought the quality of education was too low, that he, moved from Portugal to go to a school with an education level that he thought was ridiculous. He didn't like the people, and he didn't like the food.
And what drove him to go, after Nuno? People who had attended the college in Lisbon with them way back when would say, they were doing the same program together, they had all the same classes together, but it's not like, they were best mates 5 ever, they were acquaintances. Sure, they went to dinner and drinks, but they weren't like super tight or anything. I mean, when Claudio showed up on Nuno's doorstep 25 years later, Nuno probably didn't even recognize him before he was shot dead. Claudio probably believed that Nuno had stolen his life. I mean, this is a story about an egomaniac who was so driven by jealousy and spite, he harbored grudges. He harbored grudges and his vendetta against an institution and a person who had long forgotten him. He was the one to get the good grades, but sure, he was out in his ass. Everything Nuno had, he deserved. Those who knew Claudio would say he was a man who believed he was brilliant, even more so than Nuno, who's getting the attention. And sure, here, poor Claudio, not an arse in his trousers. He's like a wild shite. He's got nothing. He's like this Marvel villain, a genius, unrecognized in his own time, who later becomes a supervillain and goes on a killing spree. Claudio's car would later be traced via cameras and flock cameras, license plate readers, from Providence to Boston, then to Salem. In fact, right after Nuno was shot dead, he jumped in his car and drove straight to Salem, New Hampshire. Driving there immediately, he drove to a storage unit he rented. And Claudio would strike again for the final time. The target being his own head. It was December 18th, 2025 that an arrest warrant was issued. The police went to the Extra Space Storage in Salem, New Hampshire. They weren't expecting him to actually be there, but it was the last place they knew he had driven that rental. Cameras and license plate readers had tracked him right here. And it turned out Claudio was there. Police went in, armed, response ready. They opened up the door to his storage unit. It was completely dark inside, and they saw a body on the ground, surrounded by blood. He was cold. He had been there for 2 days. After shooting Nuno, he had come straight here, his last victim being himself. It would turn out that after shooting Nuno, he had driven here and actually recorded 4 short videos that very night. Not really explaining why he had done this, just talking about his anger, but never clearly expressing his motives of why he would do such horrifying acts. Now, the videos themselves have never been released, just the transcripts from the Justice Department, but from what I can gather, it was 4 videos, each is only couple of minutes long, and the videos are recorded in the rented storage unit in Salem, probably as soon as he arrived there, the same night he shot Nuno, and he likely recorded them in his final few moments of life. Now, I'm not going to read out the whole thing because who really gives a crap about what this insane person was saying, but I'll give you just the gist of what he was going on about. It was 6 months, man. Not 6 months, 6 semesters. I'd already planned this for a little more. The time for final conclusions has arrived. It was all a little incompetent, but at least something was done. The only objective was to leave more or less on my own terms, and it's already long overdue. So, what has been done now? I'm in a storage space in Salem. I've had this here for 3 years. I've been here without caring for a very long time now. To say that I was extraordinarily satisfied? No, but I also don't regret what I did. I'm not going to apologize, because during my lifetime, no one sincerely apologized to me. So go fuck yourselves. To hell with you. I also have no interest in being famous. I don't give a damn about how you judge me or what you think about me. He mentions that he got caught out by John. He mentioned that encounter and how he didn't think he would be tracked as soon as he was via those CCTV images. He also said he had opportunities to do the shooting before, he just chickened out. It's just a ramble, you can read it yourself. He doesn't really say anything of interest or really try to explain or justify. He's just more like, poor me, tough shit, tough titties. End of. And that was the end of Claudio Valente, the Brown University shooter and the killer of Nuno Loureiro, a guy who ended, 2 bright young students' lives. He ended the life of a world-renowned and much-loved scientist on the leading edge of this new technology, and then finally ended things himself. Well, let's not cry over spilt milk.
Police announcing tonight that the suspected shooter is dead, and they are now linking him to the murder of an MIT professor earlier this week.
48-year-old Claudio Manuel Neves Valente at the center of a multi-day crime spree across state lines. His body was discovered Thursday night in a storage unit in Salem, New Hampshire. Authorities weren't able to link Valente to both crimes until Tuesday, when Providence police got a tip from a Reddit post alerting them to a gray Nissan with Florida plates.
And that person led us to the car, which led us to the name, which led us to the photographs of that individual renting the car, which matched the clothing of our shooter here in Providence.
And John, by the way, he would later, clackety post a follow-up in the Providence subreddit, just, saying how things were going regarding the hunt for the killer. He posted this, though, before Claudio was found. This is all I will say regarding the matter. This evening I spoke to Providence Police, the Rhode Island State Police, and I imagine the FBI were listening in another room. They know who I am. I am not the individual posted in the recent round of photos. I wish that individual Godspeed, and if they have yet to come forward, I strongly encourage them to do so. All the law enforcement personnel that I interacted with today were extremely professional and worked hard to really put me at ease. Respectfully, I have said all I have to say on the matter to the right people. If any follow-up is needed, the right people know how to reach out to me. Though it is certainly your right to try, any news media attempting to reach out to me will not receive a response. This is a pseudo PSA, and my participation in the comments will be limited to upvoting reasonable takes. Thank you for your time, and let's hope the POI is apprehended soon so the authorities can get to the bottom of this. Hopefully you are all able to enjoy the holidays with your family and loved ones, but if you are not, may the following days treat you kindly. Can't blame him for wanting nothing to do with anything after that. You know, the FBI announced after the Brown University shooting, a $50,000 reward for any information leading to the identity of who the killer was. I don't know if John has gotten that reward money. Law enforcement, they wouldn't have gotten Claudio in the time they did anyway, without that tip. So I sure hope he got his money.
This right here on your screen, an excerpt of what he had to say. One individual amongst those who provided tips stands out above the rest, John. As discussed with the media, John is no less than a hero. His bravery, selflessness, and stewardship on behalf of his community went far beyond what anyone could ever hope from a tip. I believe that our community is breathing easier today because of the extraordinary assistance that John provided to our law enforcement agencies. I'm writing to you today to request that the entirety of that $50,000 reward be issued to this incredible Providence neighbor.
If he did, he's keeping it to himself. And that'll do it for this old one, folks. Thank you so much for watching. It means the world to me that you are here as always. Never be able to thank you enough. If you would like a little more of that chapter in your life, you can check out the Patreon, where for $2 a month you get early access, ad-free all videos. There's a Patreon-only Discord, and there's Patreon-exclusive videos there too. Or get a load of this. You can get the That Chapter podcast. Great reviews. Thank you so much to everybody who listens and reviews the podcast. It's free. It's on all podcast platforms, and every single Monday you get a brand new podcast exclusive story of me yapping away about some other kind of story. On the podcast, though, we do more stuff like conspiracies, hauntings, paranormal, dark history. So you know what? Do yourself a favor and check it out. Or not, because the next video will be up like next week, so look forward to that if you want to. I'm not your boss, sure, I'm not going to tell you what to do. But I will tell you to please take care of each other and yourselves till the next one. Because I love you, Mike.